Got it.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Look at all these new faces. Wow.
They're not new, they're just old.
Well, to some of us that are new, the donut, whoops. The donuts this morning were courtesy of Patsy Brooks. Thank you. Okay. Prayer notes this week is Brenda Shrekney. The birthdays, we have 3. We have on the 21st, which is today, Sharon Hobart. Okay, the 24th, Elaine Reynolds. And on the 25th, Kay Cherry. Let's sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, everybody. Happy birthday to you. Announcements are just a couple. Johnny's going to talk, I'm sure, a little bit about books and Bible, which has now been set, and that's good. This week, Pastor Ryan sent in his weekly communication to the entire congregation, a new initiative that he's starting called the Pastor's Prayer Team. This is a team that he's forming. He's asking for anyone who would like to volunteer and be a part of this. There's going to be quite a number of people that will be required, because these will be people who primarily will be praying for the congregation during worship services. So it's a unique mission, I think, for maybe for this church, but I know some churches up in New York City are really famous because they use this as a basis of an absolutely exciting ministry that they were able to develop.
I was just gonna say that our prayer committee has done that for years, for the service and for the pastors.
Okay,
And
good.
now Ryan has a new title and a new group coming in, I think that's wonderful. But we have been doing that.
Great, thank you, Trish. For those of us who are not informed, appreciate that. Concerns and praises. Do we have any concerns this week? Really?
I have an update on Linda Bood. We prayed, asked for prayers last week for her diagnosis of stomach cancer and everything. Well, I got a text from her, and she said MD Anderson, and she thanked everybody for the wonderful card that she received. But she also said that it might not be stomach cancer. Years ago, she had breast cancer, and it might be a mutant of the breast cancer. So if it is, it's much easier to treat, and she's really asking for prayers for a good diagnosis. They're doing the testing this week. So we're gonna hope not stomach cancer, breast cancer. Yeah, she's a friend of ours. Mike plays golf with her husband, and I've played golf with her before, not very well, but, anyway, so really sweet lady, and thanked us all for the prayers. So.
Any other concerns? Beth? You obey.
Yes, I talked to, oh, hang on just a second, my mind went blank. Mary Jane, yesterday her platelets are down again, but they think it's because of a urinary tract infection. But, she doesn't do anything differently, but it just, her platelets go up and down, so.
She's living with it, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Any other? Yes, brother? Mike? Where?
She doesn't need them
Imagine that. I'd like to ask for prayers for Hal LaCrone, is having eye surgery tomorrow. He's had a series of hard luck with his eye, and he's had a little problem now with a cataract problem. And Blakey and Hap, as a lot of you may know, are gonna be moving in May. And, so they've got a lot on their plate, selling their house, and he's having surgery, so just keep them both in your prayers, please.
And he
Freda,
used
is
to be
he-
one of our teachers. Hap used to be one of our teachers
Hmm.
in the Sunday school class.
Interesting, I didn't know that. Are they doing this in Dallas or here?
Dallas.
In Dallas, okay. Any other concerns?
This isn't a concern, but I just wanted to say thank you for the prayer notes last week. I had a great week and a great birthday, and, it's just wonderful to be back in Sunday school.
Thank you, Ken. Any other concerns? Praises? I'm sure there must be one or two. Patsy?
Well, a year ago, yesterday, my granddaughter had surgery for a very rare malignant brain tumor. And the last two MRIs have shown a spot. They felt like maybe it was scar tissue. But the last one she had, which was Monday, showed that that spot was smaller. So big prayer request also to continue prayer for her.
Thank you. Any other praises? Okay, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our gracious Father, we come to you humbled by the circumstances of life, by the challenges that we face each and every day. But we thank you that you are a God who cares for us, who loves us, who restores us. We just ask your special blessing upon these names that have been mentioned, Linda Bowden, and Mary Jane, Applecrone, and also the granddaughter of Patsy Brooks. Watch over them, restore them, Heavenly Father. We're grateful that we have so many blessings coming our way, that we live in a country of freedom, where we can worship, where we can grow as disciples. Teach us to hear the cry for help as it comes to us, whether it be a cry, a murmur, or just perhaps a glance. Keep us sensitive to the needs of others. Help us always, oh God, to understand that answers to our difficulties, answers to our confrontations, some of the problems that we face, does not come in books, does not come in TV commentators, but comes in your book. Help us to use that in everything that we do. We ask these things in the loving name of your Son, Jesus Christ, and our Savior. Amen.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning.
Morning.
Mary Lou, how many do we have? 28, 29?
I haven't counted yet.
I counted 4 times and got 4 different answers, so.
People move around. It's hard to keep
That's the way I keep score on the golf course.
All right. Some of you know this story, but back in '05, I had my open heart surgery in February, and so I couldn't go to work for 4 or 5 weeks, and so I had to stay home and watch TV, right? And that's when March Madness started, and of course, I've always been a March Madness fan and a college basketball fan. So I got to watch every game all day long. Like on my birthday Friday, I watched basketball all day and all night. I don't know where Tricia was, but she was stick her head in there and said, "Who's playing?" I said, "Well, I'm watching 3 games at once, you know." And anyway, I love March Madness. And the boys play their second round today at 1:40. All of the men's games are in Indianapolis at 3 different or 4 different venues up there, and the girls kick off today at 3 o'clock in San Antonio. So a lot of great basketball.
Johnny, one of the things I think is interesting
Hang on.
is the game this afternoon between Baylor and Wisconsin is going to be played in Hinckliffe, location, which is where the film of, the name of the Hoosiers was made a number of
Yes.
years ago.
It's also where the coach, Scott Drew, played basketball.
Right.
That's where he grew up, and that was the gym that he actually played in. Very ironic. Scott's brother, Bryce, is the first year coach at Grand Canyon University, which I looked it up, I don't know where it was, it's in Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah.
20,000 students.
Right.
Anyway, it's a basketball family and they're a great family. In a few minutes, we're gonna go through probably a major part of the Easter story and leave the real crux to the last couple of weeks, but I'm gonna need 7 readers. Does 7 people here have their Bible? And I'll put it up on the screen. Okay, Beth's 1, I don't know if I remember this, Trish's 2, Bill 3, 4. 5 for Jean. 6, 7, thank you. The Murphs, as you probably know by now, have volunteered and to have Boots and Bibles at their ranch, the 25th of April, the last Sunday in April. And we'll be, hopefully I can get out tomorrow and get some cards printed, and they'll have instructions on the back like the ones in the past. I called David Cherry to kind of get his blessings on moving it, and he was so thrilled. Because it's work, and he brought over 5 big sacks. I mean, within 30 minutes. Now they're in my garage of paper plates and all the stuff that he's been keeping in his garage, so he was glad to get rid of it, okay? Anyway.
Do we store that then in the future?
Yes.
Build another barn.
We have a lot of people that ask about Boots and Bibles. We missed it, and
They burn.
David still just not felt comfortable. He's being extra safe and cautious, and I respect that. So, anyway, let's plan on April 25th, and we'll see what happens. We all got this email, but I liked it so much I made a copy, and David sent it out on the 15th of March. I just like it. I don't even do the Max Cato, no wonder I like it. The hero could be next door to you and you wouldn't know it. The fellow who changes the oil in your car could be a hero in overalls. Maybe as he works, he prays, asking God to do with the heart of the driver what he does with the engine. The daycare worker, or you drop off the kids, perhaps her morning prayers include the name of each child and the dream that one of them will change the world. I know these folks don't fit our image of a hero. They are too. Well, they're normal. Give us 4 stars, titles, and headlines. But we seldom see heroes in the making, and we seldom recognize heroes. But we do well to keep our eyes open. Tomorrow's great preachers might be mowing your yard. And the hero who inspires that person might be nearer than you think. You need to look in the mirror. So true, so simple. Last week, Kay Murph sent this to me, and I just had it in my material. I just didn't read it, I'm sorry. But one of the things she sent was Texans. Texans have Lent covered. We've given up heat, water, showers, groceries. We do things big here. And we have, and we did. Thank you, Kay. You don't need to be Catholic and go to confession to appreciate this story. Make sure that you live by the last line. A priest was being honored at his retirement dinner after 25 years in the parish. A leading local figure and member of the congregation was chosen to make the presentation and give a little speech at the dinner. However, he was delayed, so the priest decided to say his own few words while they waited. He said, I got my first impression of the parish from the first confession I heard here. I thought I'd been assigned to a terrible place. The very first person who entered my confessional told me that he had stolen a television set, and when questioned by the police, he was able to lie his way out of it. He had stolen money from his parents, embezzled from the employer, and had an affair with the boss's wife, had sex with his boss's 17-year-old daughter on numerous occasions, taken illegal drugs, had several homosexual affairs, and arrested several times for public nudity and gave an STD to his sister-in-law. I was appalled that one person could do so many awful things. But as the days went on, I learned that my people were not all like that, and I had indeed come to a fine parish full of good and loving people. Just as the priest finished his talk, the politician arrived full of apologies for being late. He immediately began to make the presentation and give his talk. He said, I'll never forget the first day our parish priest arrived, said the politician. In fact, I had the honor of being the first person to go to him in confession.
Oh, no.
The moral of the story is, never, ever be late.
Never confess anything.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a lot of material here, and I might wait till next week to get to all of it. I'll read a few of these. I changed my car horn to a gunshot sound. People get out of the way much faster now. Gone are the days when girls used to cook like their mothers. Now they drink like their fathers. I didn't make it to the gym today. That makes 5 years in a row. I decided to stop calling the bathroom the John and renamed it the Gym. I feel so much better saying I went to the gym this morning. Old age is coming at a really bad time. When I was a child, I thought nap time was punishment. Now, as a grown-up, it feels like a small vacation. My definition of a nap is a short, unconscious period during which you feel no aches or pains. The biggest lie I tell myself is, I don't need to write that down, I'll remember it. I don't have gray hair, I have wisdom highlights. I'm just very wise.
Lost a lot of them.
Yeah. If God wanted me to touch my toes, He would have put them on my knees. Last year I joined a support group for procrastinators. We haven't met yet. More later. Before I get started, I want to ask some people to consider this. I'm not asking for hands up right now, and it doesn't have to, it can be women and men. But Mike and Mary Lou do so much for our class, and Mike gets things ready, he helps break stuff down, he's also carrying that mic around with him the whole time, running back and forth. What I want you to consider is being a mic runner. And let's have 2 or 3, or, so Gary takes next Sunday and, Mike takes the next Sunday, whatever. Let's just give him a break. So y'all be thinking
Just
about
when
it.
I'm not here, I don't care. Next weekend I won't be here.
Well, anyway, it's just one thing we can take off of his lap, and we can handle that. So, why don't you come to me after class, or go to Mike and volunteer for future mic running, okay? I would appreciate that, and I know he would too. He didn't ask for this, it's my idea, so. I'm sorry, Gary.
Gary said he would do it.
Yeah, he's agile.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
Can you wear
Well,
a
I'm
roller
agile too,
skates?
that's a matter of opinion too.
We've talked about this in the past, and we've, Herb, went out in his shop and found some nails for me. This one is, what did you say, Herb, 8 inches long?
8 inches, I believe.
And this is what I call a spike. We don't know exactly what was used in, the wrist and the ankles of Jesus, but it was at least this big, at least, okay? Amazing. We're gonna be reading in the book of Matthew, chapters 26 and 27. Let's see where we're going here. I'm sorry.
Turn it off. There it is. You might need to
Mike.
Checking
I don't know what I'm
everybody. I finally
doing
got
wrong
it
to
to
get
show
that
you
big.
next. You got it? Okay. Where do you wanna be?
I want this to fill the whole screen. It's been a week. There you go, see?
Fast forward.
There's 5, got 2 more on the next page, but, who had their hand up first?
I did, but I'm confused. 47 through 26?
Yes, I'm sorry, is that backwards?
Go backwards. You can read it backwards.
Yeah.
That'll be fun going backwards.
Yeah.
Well, that should be first.
How about 47 through 56? How's that sound?
That makes a little more sense.
50 through 56.
56.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am,
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
That's all right.
Typo this morning.
That's all right, I got you. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Friend, do what you came for." Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Put your sword back in place, Jesus said to him, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way? At that time, Jesus said to the crowd, am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
I like it when he said, every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled. And then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Remember that. Okay, before the Sanhedrin, 57 and 68. Who will read that? Whose hand was up next? Tricia?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. The runner's coming.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for the false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. You have said so, Jesus replied. But I say to all of you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, he had spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look now, you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? He is worthy of death, they answered. Then they spit in his face and struck him with their fist. Others slapped him and said, prophesy to us, Messiah, who hit you?
Thank you. Gross. They spit on him. They hit him with their fist. They slapped him. We've seen it in movies. There's so many, what can I call them, Kodak moments just that happen in this 6-day period, 7-day period. How they physically tortured him before he ever got these, okay? Okay. Peter denies Jesus. Disowns Jesus. 69 through 75. Bill?
Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a maid came up to him and said, you also are with Jesus the Galilean. But he denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you mean. And he went out to the porch, and another maid saw him, and she said to the bystanders, this man was with Jesus of Nazareth. And also he denied it with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, certainly you were also one of them, for your accent betrays you. Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, I do not know the man. And immediately the cock crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly.
My Bible says he went outside and wept bitterly. You know, of all the characters, Peter has always been kind of one of my favorites. Excuse me. But he was, what can I say, scared. He's scared for his own being. They all were. He lied, and he lied, and he lied. Jesus told him ahead of time, you're gonna do it. I like it at the very end when he went outside and wept bitterly. Okay, look up the word bitterly. Okay. Go back to the bad guy, Judas. Chapter 27, 1 through 10.
Early in the morning, all the chief priests and elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priests picked up the coins and said, it is against the law to put this into the treasury since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. This is why it has been called the field of blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 silver coins, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me.
What happened to Judas? Why did he do a 180 on this thing? I mean, he was with Jesus for 3 years, okay, along with everybody else, but I think we can understand what he did and why he did it, why he wanted this payment, and he even went, said, you know, what's it worth to you if I turn him over to you? 4 months of wages is what it would amount to. That's a lot of money. What got into Judas's heart?
Remorse.
I kind of wonder if he asked God for forgiveness and was forgiven. You know, you wonder.
Yeah, we don't know.
Did he make it to heaven or not?
Yeah, we don't know that. I'm sorry, Gary.
The theory is, I think, that the thought is that Judas thought that if he identified Jesus to the centurions, Jesus would rise up and take his rightful place as commander-in-chief here on earth. Now, that it would force Jesus' hand, and of course we see that he didn't. And so he was a miserable failure, and that's why he got to the tree to hang himself. He had misread Jesus so badly, you know.
Another hand was up? No? Okay, Jesus before Pilate, 27:11 through 26. Gene, you were reading that, right?
Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You've said so," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they're bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Oh, wait, more to go. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. When Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Jesus saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "The blood is on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified.
Thank you. I've said this before many times, maybe, but I felt sorry for Pilate. He says, "Why?" He asked, "Why? What crime has he committed?" And all he heard back was the shouting of the crowd, "Crucify him, crucify him." His wife's statement in this short story, to me, is so significant. You don't mess with this guy, okay? I had a dream, I suffered from it. It's real. Don't do it. He was in a bad position, a terrible position. I think in his own heart, he knew Jesus hadn't done anything wrong, especially to deserve being crucified. Okay, chapter 27, verse 27 through 31. Soldiers mock Jesus. Okay.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe upon him, and platted a crown of thorns, which they put on his head, and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spat upon him, and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe, and put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him.
Okay, the crucifixion, 32 through 44. Who's got that? Okay.
Along the way, they came across a man named Simon, who was from Cyrene. And the soldiers forced him to carry Jesus' cross. And they went out to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. The soldiers gave him wine mixed with bitter gall, but when he had tasted it, he refused to drink it.
After they had nailed him to the cross, the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. Then they sat around and kept guard as he hung there. A sign was fastened to the cross above Jesus' head, announcing the charge against him. It read, "This is Jesus, King of the Jews." 2 revolutionaries were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. The people passing by shouted abuse, shaking their heads in mockery. "Look at you now," they yelled at him. "You said you were going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Well then, if you are the Son of God, save yourself and come down from the cross." The leading priests, the teachers of religious law, and the elders also mocked Jesus. "He saved others," they scoffed, "but he can't save himself. So he is the King of Israel, is he? Let him come down from the cross right now, and we will believe in him." He trusted God, so God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, "I am the Son of God." Even the revolutionaries who were crucified with him ridiculed him in the same way.
He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. Okay, we've got just enough time for me to read this. I read this April 20th, 2014, 7 years ago. And I don't know the name of the book it came out of. But I like the story, so bear with me, okay? The title is, "I Reckons I Will Always Remember That Walk." So what should I do with Jesus? Pilate asked at first. But maybe we've all asked it since. It's a fair question, a necessary question. What do you do with such a man? He called himself God, but wore the clothes of a man. He called himself the Messiah, but never marshaled an army. He was regarded as king, but his only crown was of thorns. People revered him as regal, yet his only robe was stitched with mockery. Small wonder Pilate was puzzled. How do you explain such a man? One way is to take a walk, his final walk. And that is what we have done. We have followed his steps and stood in his shadow, from Jericho to Jerusalem, from the temple to the garden to the trial, from Pilate's palace to the cross. We have watched him walk angrily into the temple, wearily into Gethsemane, painfully up to the cross, and powerfully out of the vacated tomb. Hopefully, you and I have witnessed his walk. We have reflected on our own. For all of us have our own walk to Jerusalem, our own path through a hollow religion, our own journey down the narrow path of rejection, and each of us, like Pilate, must cast a verdict on Jesus. Pilate heard the voice of the people and left Jesus to walk the road alone. Will we? May I conclude with the stories of 3 walks, 3 journeys, the stories of 3 slaves, and the paths that they took to freedom. Mary Barber could tell you about slavery firsthand. She remembered the marsh and the master. She could describe the plantation the stick and mud slave house with the bunks, the long nights, the hot days, the hard whips, isolation. Mary Barber could tell you about it. You see, Mary Barber was a slave, but she'd rather tell you about freedom. And that's what she did. In 1935, a worker with the Federal Writers Project knocked on her door in Raleigh, North Carolina. The Federal Writers Project was a government-sponsored effort to record the memories of ex-slaves. Over 2,000 were interviewed. These, the final voices to speak for the 246 years of bondage in America, did so with earthly eloquence. They told how they were not allowed to read or write, nor purchase or sell merchandise. They couldn't go to church unless invited. Whippings were common. Hard work was a fact of life. And when freedom came, they weren't ready. They weren't ready. They wandered roads looking for work. They were victimized by opportunities. Many ended up back at the same plantation. But of all the memories, the most vivid and the one most shared was the hour of freedom. The night the Yanks came. The day the master told them they could leave. The morning they went up to the big house and found it empty. And of the stories of liberation, none were more specific than Mary Barber's. You see, she was 10 years of age the night her father awoke her and led her to the wagon that would carry them to freedom. Before you read her words, picture her seated on the porch in Raleigh. It's 1935. Mary Barber is over 80 years old. She rocks as she thinks. Her tiny body swallowed by the large chair. Her frail fingers tremble as she rubs her nose. Old but eager eyes stare out as if she's gazing into the land far off the horizon. You lean back against the pole and listen to her story. One of the first things that I remember was my pappy waking me up in the middle of the night, dressing me in the dark, all the time telling me to keep quiet. One of the twins hollered at some, and Pappy put his hand over his mouth to keep it quiet. As we dressed, he went outside and peeked around for a minute. Then he came back and he got us. We snuck out of the house and along the woods path, Pappy toting one of the twins and holding me by the hand, and Mammy carrying the other two. I reckons I will always remember that walk. With the bushes slapping my legs and the wind sighing in the trees and the hoot owls and the whippoorwills hollering at each other from the big trees. I was half asleep and scared stiff. But in a little while we passed the plum thicket, and there, and the mules and the wagons, there and the quip of the bottom of the wagon, and on this things lay we young'uns. And Pappy and Mammy got on the board across the front and drove us down the road. I was sleepy, but I was scared too. As we rides along, I listens to Pappy and Mammy talk. Pappy was telling Mammy about the Yankees coming to the plantation, burning the corn cribs, the smokehouses, and destroying everything. He says right low, and they done took Master Jordan to the Rip Raps down near Norfolk, and he stole the mules and the wagon and escaped. Glimmerings of deliverance, lingerings of liberation. 6 decades later, the wind still sighs and the trees and the whippoorwills and the hoot owls still holler at each other in Mary Barber's memory. The walk to freedom is never forgotten. The path taken from slavery to liberation is also vivid. It's more than a road, it's a release. The shackles are opened, and perhaps for the first time, freedom dawns. I reckon I'll never remember that walk. Do you remember yours? Where were you the night the door opened? Do you remember the touch of the Father who walked with you that day? You were free. Can you still see the scene? Can you feel the road beneath you? I hope so. I hope that permanently planted in your soul is the moment the Father stirred you in the darkness and led you down the path. It's a memory like no other. For when He set you free, you were free indeed. Ex-slaves describe well the hour of deliverance. Okay. I'm going to read the other two later, but I thought that was interesting. 1935, the government did one of these studies, and we question a lot of that stuff, but how interesting it is, or was, in the story retold. Okay, let's close in prayer. Father God, thank you for this Sunday and this season and this time that we celebrate Easter and what it stands for. We thank you for you. We thank you for everything we have. We're incredibly blessed with your love and your grace. We love you. We lift you up. In your special name that we pray. Amen.